Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
So this is going to be fast and furious. We talk about it like the ice cube and a drink on top of the iceberg. That's how shallow and also really fundamental it's going to be, right? It's the taste. And hopefully this isn't a converting you into an idea, but resonating and going, oh yeah, we kind of do that already, but how can I do that deeper? So this is not new stuff to learn from us rather than an experience to just dig deeper into what you're already doing is the hope. So, but this is the origin of us individually and the work. So you want to...
And just to be for us to be able to share some of the dialogue and dynamics that we have been discovering, still are discovering, and to have that with you to be able to discover more as well. Where do we begin?
Well, who are you?
Who am I? I'm Simon Sharkey. I was co-founding director of National Theatre Scotland. Way back in 2005, 2006, we launched that company in, and what's relevant to this discussion, a paradigm of what I call chaos. That the world was getting more complex, that viewpoints were being polarized, technology, globalization, old stories weren't working, old forms were starting to feel tired. This new company was charged with a responsibility to find new ways of telling stories, really, and doing things in a different way. My part of that was to create participatory arts. That's a label. I don't like labels, but it was about connection. It was how do we find connection? What are the new forms? What are the new relationships that we have with artists, but also with audiences, with ensembles, with communities? And I started on this quest that we called Theatre Without Walls. It was about being immersive, finding new language for it. And I come up with a phrase that I call theatre of opportunity, which is about educating, enlightening, empowering, innovation, all of these things that you'll find in textbooks, but I could never find an actual, the words that would capture the thing until I met Jess, where we met at ITAC 4, and we started this dialogue, and Jess was talking about her work with Creatively Independent. Maybe I'll hand over to you now.
No, it's perfect, because what we've noticed about this topic, suspension of disconnect, is when we do connect, the experience and the evolution of whatever we're working on, whether it's theater, art, health, politics, it's in the middle. So when we met and started talking about our different approaches, for me, it's like saying, I can find multiple ways to get inside the house. I don't care how you get inside the house, whether it's the chimney or the window or you have a key, just get in. So he's an outside guy, I'm an inside gal. Creatively Independent is about self-awareness. So it's mindfulness, play, and community. Because I believe I trip off on the infinity symbol. And so I believe we can hold two binaries in our hand at both times, but the sweet spot is in the middle, which makes it imperative to keep going. Because every once in a while, it'll connect. And then we'll have these epiphany moments out in space in the collective consciousness. I focus on creative ownership and sustainable artistry, because I feel like as individuals, what I've noticed in the work of the past 2 decades is abuse, martyrdom. There's 1,000 just like you if you don't do the job. Tough, out the door. And so my work is to help with agency. So I focus on a person's identity. Who are they? Their intention. What do they want? And then their impact. What's their dream beyond their lifetime? So I coach people in having a horizon, and which is where the land and the sky never meet. You know, how do I feel so strongly about my lineage and my experience and why I'm here that I can strive towards something that somebody else would say, who do you think you are? To think that you would impact people in that way. If we can't suspend disbelief that we are that powerful as a group, as a unit, as a consciousness, how are we going to evolve is my kind of question there. So I do that through performing arts and theater and music and dance and what have you. So when we started talking in between, I had written a book, and I played around with the idea of the joke that suspension of disbelief has an assumption that we're constantly in a state of disbelief 24/7 as a community. And that as artists or teachers, we're asking for like a small fraction that you believe so we can go someplace new here. Maybe here too, but here, right? Table work, a lot of theory. And so it made me start to wonder, what about this? When we don't talk about it, when we feel it, when we experience it, right? And so I started to play around with the phrase this summer with Simon of suspension of disconnect. If we are in the feeling of disconnecting from ourselves, like I don't know when I'm hungry because I haven't asked myself all day, you know, simple stuff, all the way to war and not connecting with the person across from me just because generations have told me that this person is less than, right? Or I'm less than, and I have to prove myself. How do we connect?
Yeah, and that dialogue from my perspective of a national company and responsibility and finding new ways and new forms, that's where we started getting really excited. When Jess came up with this phrase of suspension of disconnect, it went straight to the heart of what I was reaching for, which was about how do we go from the very deep and personal to it being something that can change the way we view ourselves, the world, the people that we're with, connect with communities and with learning and growth, when things are so complex and there's so much cognitive dissonance and or psychic entropy. How do we clear all that away? And that's where play and flow came in, and that was really where we started to go, right, it's about play, it's about flow, and
we started to find a shared dialogue.
Yeah.
We started to look at other companies that are doing it, or other situations, other moments in ourselves where we felt like, why did I connect to that mailman and I didn't connect to the garbage person? Like, you know, what was I doing? What was I responsible for? What did they do that gave me an invitation to look them in the eye? You know, how do I know I have an audience? How do I, as an audience, realize I've held my breath for 5 minutes? You know, like how, and I was there. I was in between, feeling it. And so, yeah, play. So I guess what we're going to do at the end of the webinar, or, you know, with the email list and stuff, is we're going to send you a PDF takeaway of like resources that we were starting to, you know, play around with, like Stuart Brown's play and his proponents of play.
And Miali's flow. Mm-hmm. Two big pieces.
Those are big pieces. Yeah. And when they break down what the essentials are, they're really, we've found a great vocabulary to start to go, oh, I could tune into that. Oh, I could tune into that. Or I can start to find my own personal, cultural examples of people that are already doing that. They might not call it that. Because to me, if I can find models, positive models, I can take the next step forward, like leapfrog into the thing. So, and it's not for me to tell you who your models are, you know. So we're going to be doing a lot of this back and forth. So speaking of that, do you want to just...
Let's move.
So I want to get to know y'all.
You're going to be more positive models for us.
Okay. So this is both a exercise in self-connection, and it's also an exercise in ensemble connection. So I call it setting your sights. So with your pen and your paper, I would love for you to get ready, and we're going to share them. So this is going to be a little bit of an unmuted thing for those who want to share. But what I'd like you to think about is your name, a gesture on how you feel right now, not words. Yeah. So a gesture on how you feel, and then your intention for being here. And the meditation is this, because this is kind of a new structure, is that I'd like you to close your eyes and put it through what I call a 3-year-old why filter. You know, when 3-year-olds keep going, why is the sky blue? Oh, because there's, why? Oh, because, why? Until there are no more becauses, okay? So for example, my intention might be to learn what Simon and Jess's pedagogy is. But my question would be, why? Why is that important? And then answer that in your head. And then ask yourself why again, until you get to a place where you're like, ooh, that sounds a little scary. I'm here for this reason. Okay, so give yourself 2 minutes. Name, think of the gesture on how you feel right now, and your intention. Okay, short and sweet. Short and sweet, why? I'm here because. Okay, so my technology guru, how should we do this mute-wise? Madeline, how?
Maybe at this stage, everyone can unmute themselves, and then there's not a weird delay where we're all waiting to see if it's our turn or to sort of nervously offer our responses. And if it gets a little messy, it just gets a little messy.
Okay, so we'll wait for the negative space and we'll just be present, because it's only an individual connection to self unless I also listen and feel what other people are intentionally doing. Because I wanna just share this. Setting your sights for me is putting a pole in the ground and saying, this is who I am. Tying a rope around it is the feeling, and I feel this way about myself. And I'm going to shoot that rope through an arrow across the circle. And I have to land it hard or it will bounce. And if I do that, and Simon does that, and Madeline does that, and Eric does it, Jess, and all of these people do that, we have created a workshop that only could be created because of us. Yeah, a little ropes course to play on. So the more we listen to each other, the better. Okay, so.
My name is Jesse. This is my gesture, and after putting it through the filter, I'm here because being in Mobile has been a necessary but weird situation, so I've felt very disconnected from the theater community in general. And so this is kind of a way to reinvigorate on a Thursday and kind of reestablish that connection. Because I love the people here in Mobile, but they're not necessarily my home tribe, so to speak.
Well, hi, I'm Jen, and my gesture is just here. I don't know if you can see it because it's low. I am here because I am at a wall point to try to connect with a new group of students that I have, and I need to get out of my own way, because instead of using my wall for a rebound, I've been beating my head against a wall, and that's not healthy. So I need to get out of my own way.
This is Eric. My gesture for the moment would be this. And I'm here because the space that you're talking about, that potential for connecting space, I think teaching artists are able to both invite it into space between people, and they're actually able to courageously activate people's willingness to join it. And I want more of that.
Hi, I'm Ali. I don't know how to pull the screen thing, so I'm assuming that people are looking at me, so I'm assuming that you're all hearing me. Fabulous. So I'm Ali. My gesture is, and I guess I'm here because I want to investigate igniting a deeper connection through theatre, through the theatre productions that I make, and the form that they take. But yeah, I'm investigating that at the moment, and this is sort of very relevant.
Okay, I'll go. Gerardo. And I'm not here particularly because it's theater. It's more of arts. I don't consider myself a theater guy, but I'm very interested in how we can link arts to connections. And I see we're talking about that right now. And I'm started to get interested not only with human connections, but also connections in general. For example, connections with objects, with nature, with so many things. So I'm kind of excited of what we can talk about that right now.
Okay, I think I can go for this one, right? Can I? Okay, so my name is Peter Achu Adalete, ITAC Ghana. My gesture is this. I feel that the theater conventions has been trapping me all this while. And my intention is to make sure I break the walls of the theater convention so I can discover the unknown world, the world that many people or many theories have not been able to discover. I want to use my gesture to discover those worlds. So it's all about breaking the theater conventions.
I'll go. Hi, everybody. My name is Brianne. My gesture is a little bit of like pressure today. I think I'm here to focus on more meaningful and lasting connections between teaching artists and students. We do a lot of parachute drop-in programs, and I'd like to help explore how to make that a bit more lasting of an experience for the students and also for the teaching artist.
I can go. Can everybody hear me all right? Okay. My name is Steven. My gesture is this. And I'm here because I am living up in the mountains here in Virginia in the United States, and I don't really know a lot of people, and I'm very, very good at socially isolating myself, and so I figure, why don't I connect with a couple of people across the planet? So I'm just here to build connections. I'm here to learn more about y'all, and I'm just very thankful to be a part of this call today.
Oh, well, I'll definitely go after that one. That speaks to mine. My gesture would be a big, like, beckoning, come and join us wave of happiness. And my intention would be to create a sort of network spider web of teaching artists around the world that can connect and learn from each other and help us all with these various intentions that we have.
We got time for like maybe one more? I mean, hopefully we all have ours.
How do I do it? How do I do it? Okay, can I do this? Am I on? Yay! Hi everyone, I'm Tanya. I'm on high, so it's like this, and then also like this, because my intention is to have the connection in my close circle expand. So that's something that has been showing up all month long. So my intention through here is this climbing up and also reaching back. That makes any sense.
Well, and I just want to say also hi, Christina. And Christina wrote hers because some people aren't on the visual or the audio access. But if you check on the message, Christina just wrote, I'll say it really quickly for those who are, hi gang, I'm Christina. My gesture is a flowing hand tracing the bumps and falls of a riverbed. I hope I'm getting it close. That's beautiful. I'm here ultimately because I'm looking for a way to forge connection and make more meaning for others, and also to make my own existence feel meaningful. Because yes, absolutely. It's the individual, it's the I and the we. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Oh, good. So you want to share yours really quick? No, right?
No. Mine's this. And my intention is to spark the goosebumps and the energy in myself, which only comes when I see also as a mirror the energy and the curiosity and all the gestures from the group. So without you, I'm less than. So thank you. So I'm this. Because my intention has shifted completely, listening to everybody and the ensemble starting to form and threads starting to come together. Jesse's arrows flying over the circle is this. So my intention is to absorb and listen and learn.
Do you want to take us to your exercise? Because I think that really crossed a lot of people's intentions already with object.
Yeah, there was some mention of that as well, and I love Jess's 5-year-old filter of why, because when we end up at a why, we go, oh, there's more. And I thought I'd set you this task with the objects so that we can speak a bit more about who we are, intentions, and connection. So, without any further ado, I'm just going to invite you in to present your object and tell us what your connection is to it and why it's relevant.
Under a minute.
Yeah, 1 minute.
No context.
Yeah.
Okay, no worries. This is mine. It's an origami ring. Can you look? Okay, so my wife made this for me when she was my girlfriend. This was like 8 years ago, I believe. And she invented it. I mean, that's the amazing part. This isn't from any diagrams or something like that. She just came up with this when she was working. She's an economist. She was working for a bank and she had spare time. And this is made from one of those party things that are a piece of paper that are for parties. And it was just so amazing that she made that for me. And because I'm an origamist, I mean, what makes me an artist is origami. And I actually started a paper on that, on origami pieces that become important for people. That's it.
Mine is this rabbit named after one of my favorite theater makers, Bertolt Brecht. And it was a opening night gift from a very close friend of mine when I participated in the Alabama premiere of DNA by Dennis Kelly. And it represents a time in my life where theater literally, very literally saved my life. So it's very precious to me.
Okay, so this is mine. This is a candle. This connects me to my mother. My mom always wanted to do things to inspire life. So whenever I see this, I always want to be the light in my community. So I'm always doing stuff to be the light.
Hey, I just have to say, whoever put that piece of paper up, cheers on you, because there was no context. It was just like, this is me and good luck. Find out what that means.
Actually, it's a character sheet for Dungeons and Dragons, an RPG game. Now, I don't know who put it there, but it's for playing games.
So it's Dungeons and Dragons, like the role and
Right, okay.
Yay for the community to let us know what it is. That's great.
I have this little guy. A friend gave it to me. And this friend is really good with making connections, and she's tiny. She's a tiny little woman, and she just inspires me to make those connections in my life.
Hi, I have this little thing. It's a sculpture, in fact, and it came from a ceramics festival, which I originally visited with my aunt, and then I took my husband to see it and found this little guy and bought him.
This is Eric. Object is this small stone that I carry with me at all times from the land where I have lived for 25 years or so. And particularly in recent years, it seems important for me to be on that land to do the more pioneering creative work that's most important to me.
Okay, I can go. Thank you all for everything. I have this large object here. It's very detailed, so I'll kind of hold it up there. It's a hand carved mask, basically, or sculpture that I got on the streets of Jackson Heights in Queens, New York, which where I lived before I lived here in Virginia, and it was blessed by the person who carved it in the indigenous traditions of the Mayan people. And I just really love it because it reminds me of home. Jackson Heights was my first home. And, there's something, somebody mentioned dialectics before, and the idea of like having this sort of deeply personal, symbolic religious object being blessed underneath the rusted train trestles of Queens was kind of the aesthetic that I would strive to live by. So this is really important to me, and I keep it on the altar that we have here in our house. So thank you.
I'll do one really quick. So it's funny. This is Simon and I tag teamed on, you know, it's exercises just to kind of play in the world. But this is what I'm obsessed with. That I don't know if you knew, but I do talismans from tattoos to what have you. So this is mine. This is one of mine, and it's a person. I wear it as a bracelet. You can see it's open, and it's to remind me that there's that I can be fully loved, and yet it's impermanent. So my students are and are not my students. I am and am not an influence to people, and that we all have choices on what we take with us and what we carry. But that doesn't mean I have to be neutral about it. I can fully embrace the moment or the person or the experience and still have an out when it changes, and it might not be healthy anymore. I've got Audrey's got one. She wrote, referring to the Dungeons and Dragons paper, she said, years ago, while touring with the Shakespeare in the Park Company, while touring the country, I was invited to play this game with my fellow artists, and it reminds me of a time when I connected so deeply with a group of people, creating art and lasting friendships, a time when I felt free, self-expressed, powerful, and it speaks to how important nostalgia is for me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gavin says, mine is a pair of odd socks that my best friend, who I only see once a year, gave me to wear on his wedding day when I was his best man. My question with this for y'all on a piece of paper, just to kind of get deeper into now the external and sharing it, and also the internal, here's a couple questions. Knowing how important this is to me that I brought it up to strangers, where do I keep this every day? Some people have already addressed that, some have not, okay? If I don't have it someplace where I can see it every day, why not? And is there a way to change that if it's that powerful to connect to the person, to myself, to the moment? Yeah. And the other one is, are there other parts of me I also wish I could have shown in an object? And if so, what are those? And if you want to make some guesses about what other people like, oh, that's interesting. Here's some adjectives and adverbs I just picked up about the people I just met 30 minutes ago. You know, just some quick, non-judgmental looks at who we are from these really personal things. So just take a minute. Yeah. Where do I keep them? Why don't I have them out more? Do I need more? You want to share yours?
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go because it's my glasses case, and there's a couple of things about this. One, because I'm traveling, I'm not carrying objects that might necessarily be with me at the whole time. And when doing this exercise, quite often people will say, "Oh, I forgot my object," and they'll grab something that is maybe a stapler off their desk or their glasses case. And they've not really examined what the relationship to an object or a space or an environment is until they actually make that connection. So that's why I chose this, because I said, like, what shall I bring? It's with me all the time. It's how I see the world. It's where I put my eyes, and how I get closer to how things are being shared. But I wouldn't necessarily have made that analysis or those connections had I not been in a situation where I was picking something up and being made more aware of what the objects are, the choices that I make, and the possibilities and opportunities in my relationship to an object that I take for granted. So that's why I've chosen this one. It awakens me. It lets me see other things in new ways and new lights, literally, but also what is my relationship to objects in space, metaphorically, that I'm not tuning into until asked or given the opportunity to be able to do that.
Which I think is a great segue, because both are based in intentionality, right? For example, my bracelet, I intentionally put it on already. I make sure I have it with me when I travel, those kinds of things, because of what it symbolizes. Simon's intentionality is practical, but under this exercise, it's then, no, I need to find the deeper reason why this is a metaphor for me, right? So we can come at it from both ways. We don't have to be like super prepped on how to be mindful. It's more of a matter of, for me, and this is one of the 4 themes of suspension of disconnect, is how do I connect with artful living? So that's one of the themes. I'm going to jump to that one because you started to speak to it, Simon, about awareness. So that's one. So connecting with artful living. How do I, so these are questions, and we'll type them up for you, but by all means, write down what you want or answer them. How do I activate my senses? Because the more I can activate them like a magnet, the stronger I become. Yeah, so just like this exercise, the activation of importance and metaphor was already in tune through decades for Simon, so he could look at his glass case and say, oh no, this is deeper than a glass case. It's both, right? So how do I activate my senses? All 5 senses, your smells, all of that, but also your sense of decency, sense of humor. Like, list out what senses are important to you, right? Sense of right and wrong. Because I'll start to look for that in the newspaper. I'll start to look for that on the playground if someone's getting bullied, right? Because this is a sense that's important to me and it drives me forward. So activating your senses, being aware, right? Keeping your eyes up, keeping your ears open, keeping your nose open, smelling things, breathing in deep, being aware. Another one is curiosity. Curiosity will absolutely drive connection. And I have a very little quick thing that I wanted to share with you guys, is that I have a scale on inquiry, on question. And so it can go in my belief, the same question can be translated from pure curiosity, have no idea what you're going to say when you answer it. The middle road is, inquiry. I have some research behind it. I think I might know what you're going to say, but you may go off and I'll have some follow-ups, right? That's the mid road. The furthest one is interrogation, which is I'm asking you a question, which is really a statement, right? I know the answer already, but it's still asked as a question. And anybody who remembers their teen years will know what an interrogation feels like, right? They know why you're late already for curfew, but it's the same question. So how do I shift myself more into the world of inquiry, where I have a little bit of a resources behind my curiosity, to pure unknown? I have no idea. And that's why I'm going to connect really deeply to this nurse that I just happen to need to spend an hour with, because I don't know who she is. And she doesn't know who I am, and let's just say yes, and listen.
And that's where possibility lives. And that's where connection happens, with those possibilities that are awakened.
Mm-hmm. So when some of us were speaking of the unknown, it's big. And I think with arts and with teaching artistry especially, there's a tension. Because what needs to be known? It needs to be known I can cover this in 45 minutes. It needs to be known that the teaching artists are only going to see them for 3 times. It needs to be known, Simon talks about aspirations rather than expectations. Yeah, expectations are based on what's already happened. I pretty much know how this is going to go. So that's in the inquiry to interrogation line. Right? But how do I go to aspirations where I have an intention and I have a hope and a love for what's going on, but I'm open to what the students may need. They might need more time. They might need less time. I might, those kinds of things. So that's one theme. What's another thing of disconnect?
Other themes, the connection with ensemble and with audience. I'd like to tease those out as well, and I'd like you to tease them out for me to understand what your connections are, and even the use of the words ensemble and audience are questions for me. I'm curious about what that is. If is it a classroom, or is it a person? What's your audience? What's your ensemble? And how connections are made to them. And I talk about openness, playfulness, togetherness, touching on what Jess was saying about the awakening the senses, and not just our five senses, the sense of humor, sense of decency, as Jess was saying. How do we connect all of these things into, in practical terms as well, playing with ensemble, and making sure our audience are not passive, whatever we call audience and whatever we call ensemble. So if anybody wants to be able to tease that out from their perspective, I'd like to be able to do that as well.
Yeah, anybody want to just popcorn out some other words for ensemble team, or how they affect you in your life?
And connection.
It's kind of an unfinished thought, but we've got a book club at work that just read a Brene Brown book, and she focuses a lot on listing the people in your life who you are allowed to take feedback from, and that helps define whose opinions you don't have to listen to. And I think that in a world where judgment of self and judgment of others is so prominent, it's really interesting to be like, okay, I respect and trust that these core group of people who really know me are going to give me productive feedback, not tearing me down feedback. So I think that that's really interesting in a classroom sense, where we are constantly kind of, this worked, this didn't work, I want to see more of this from you, and it has to be a safe space. So I guess it's hard to kind of make that list of who's allowed to, because that teaching artist that you don't know could be giving, a student in various level of vulnerability feedback, but making sure it's always coming from a place of support and positivity and encouragement, and then that will make it okay, even if it is a constructive, how about we change that and try this feedback.
No, that's wonderful. And I would love to build on, just very quickly, there's an acronym I love and it's LOVE, L-O-V-E, and it's let others voluntarily evolve. Mm. So for a teaching artist to sense, again, that would be a connection on why they want the feedback. Not what the feedback is, but why. Are they looking for support? Are they looking for someone to cut them down because that's all they know about feedback? There's a difference between critique and criticism, and that doesn't happen a lot. The differentiation is gray, and I believe needs to be a bit more black and white for people to understand this is why I'm asking for the feedback. But yeah, I just wanted to offer that up.
Anyone else?
I also have an unbaked thought in response to your question. I'd never really thought before about ensemble on a continuum, and that one of the variables is how many occasions I am in where there are physically overt ensembles, but that are not functioning with the ensemble vitality and sort of belief system that makes an ensemble effective. And I never really thought before how the continuum works and what the variables are that contribute to that ultimate feeling of ensemble that I think we know artistically in maybe sometimes rare, glorious occasions when we've been around it, but how we can more effectively be attentive to the contributing threads that lead to that.
To playing off of what you had just said, one of the things that our groups use is crew or crewmates. Sorry, bell change. my classes especially, we look at it as we are now officially on a journey. So our journey happens in a boat, and we are in a crew with limited resources. So if our crew members are sucking up resources but not contributing to the journey, that's where we shift from terms of ensemble to, do we need to escort you to the plank and invite you to walk over? Or are you going to find a way to contribute, and now we can share our resources with you? And pardon me? No. Okay, I'm gonna go on mute now because we've entered the work section of the day.
Okay, I wanted to share a very short ideas. I've been very interested precisely in how to generate this sense of ensemble through origami, because origami usually is seen so mechanical. Follow these steps and create this. And I've learned a lot from a friend that is passionate about fabric arts, like knitting, for example. And this metaphor of women in a living room, all knitting, all sharing, all conversing. I've been trying to think, how can I take this to origami? How can we talk about folding together and trying to generate a connection through folding together, but also generating this sensibility in relation to what you're doing with the paper, for example. I think it's very interesting. There's something very emotional about all of that. That's what I wanted to share.
I want to support, there's been a couple of ideas that, that have come across. The metaphor, or using someone else's art form or structure, and distilling down the essentials of why I'm personally drawn to it, will help me then transfer it into my genre, is what I've noticed. So a question that Eric had of form, but the internal doesn't feel right. Like, it looks like a person, but yet it feels like an android. You know, it's like, what's missing? Or, you know, the opposite magnet you just spoke to, sir, is that you feel already and you're drawn to the fiber arts and the community that's being built for that. So what are those things that then you can transfer into folding the community together through paper? Yeah. And that's really knowing ourselves, right?
And just to pick up on both of those points, again, this is unformed, but the idea that these occasions are rare and glorious, but the opportunity for, with awareness, that possibility is there, is really it's something that occurs to me, that if we're more aware and focused on what those opportunities are, then they will become less rare and more glorious, and people will see the forms, new forms, starting to emerge. That's where it gets really exciting, because it's actual connection without having to explain it in any other way other than its connection.
And we feel it.
Yeah.
Which to me is why the suspension of disbelief and the suspension of disconnect aren't at odds with each other. I think in some ways, sometimes it works to suspend disbelief in order to suspend disconnect, and vice versa, right? So how, as a creator of my own life, of my own journey, how am I fluid enough and compassionate enough to, the last time I did it with suspension of disbelief, and we did table work and everything was fine. But this time, hell no, it's not happening. So how do I keep flowing myself and figure out, and then let the group know, we may have created this piece this way last time, but we're gonna create it this way this time. But the why is the same. The hows are different, but the whys have to be the same. Yeah, because that's how I find
Which is why it's really good being a 5-year-old with a filter. Yeah. And just picking up on what Jess is saying, if we are that aware, and we have got this why, and we do arrive through those journeys and of ensemble, and through artful living, if these are constants in our lives as artists and teachers or connectivity people, then come to audience. That journey from self, ensemble, art for living to audience. What is audience?
So that's our fourth theme.
What is
audience?
Go on, tease it out for me.
What's that?
I was just going to say, so unprocessed thought, but two things. So, firstly, in relationship to connectivity, and the kind of openness and playfulness, and I think that some of the thoughts that I've been having about this and I've been working on are, I think risk is a really big part of that you have to be open to risk, and then the humanity that comes from opening yourself up to risk, I think, is noticed in other people, which then I think that might be something to do with the reason that they then feel open to connect to also risk, which then places you in that place where you both don't know, and it's the curiosity that you were talking about, which I believe that maybe that's the creative connectiveness, and in relationship to audience. Ensemble, for what it's worth, I feel like Ensemble is a group of people, but I also question whether objects are part of that, but certainly a creative team is part of that. It's not just the cast ever. I also question whether the audience is part of the ensemble, because it's a sharing altogether, and I think an audience is someone who is receiving something, an experience of some sort, from something outside of themselves.
I would agree that it seems that the ensemble, or the audience rather, really isn't necessarily apart from that ensemble. I'm a big fan of Peter Brook's definition in his book, The Empty Space, about theater. You've got space participator, or space performer, audience member. And if we kind of follow that formula, whether or not we kind of, this is Tatiana, everybody. Tatiana gets very lonely. But if we follow that kind of definition, and that's a form that I've been sticking with because I like bare bones things like that, the audience becomes that necessary part of the ensemble to help round that out. Even though I like some of Grotowski's teaching, I'm not necessarily a fan of the paratheatrical idea of going off and just doing these shows for themselves. And I'm being a little reductive there just for simplicity's sake, but I think in a world where maybe the future of humanity lies in establishing sort of a connection that's deep-seated in compassion, the audience needs to become, rather than a separate body, but just a very specific form of ensemble that joins with the ensemble on and around and behind the stage. And that's kind of something that's been on my brain a lot over the last few months as I kind of take this sort of slow period to kind of readdress some of my ideas about theater.
And I want to share, because it's coming up and how everyone's talking, and I appreciate the non-assumption that we live in a linear world, is that Simon and I see these four themes, right? Connection to self and process, connection to ensemble and team, connection to audience being a part of it or having one, in both, and connection to artful living, these four things, more as a Venn diagram. Then one needs to, because there, Ali was speaking to the fact that some of the adjectives and adverbs, right, vulnerability, risk, they also play in the other ones too. So who's to say which one hits stronger to then influence the weaker circle, right? And they're going to constantly change. So the middle point is the ultimate suspension of disconnect, is when they all four cross over. So those are, I told you, it's fast and furious. These are the four themes. It's almost noon.
And we've only touched, we haven't even begun. However, we've learned loads.
Well, and thank you for the comments too, because we've got, there's theater for young audiences that are working with babies and toddlers, which is wonderful. There was also a comment about toys, again, objectivity, connecting to the global through a single baby Yoda that's going through the North America. So, but what we wanted to, do you want to touch on something and then just kind of give our little window of more connection for that?
I just want to read some words back that have been coming in. Just as a bit of fun as well, talking about,
just to reinforce.
Just as feedback from the ensemble, to say about the conversation that we've been having for the past. Oh, you're right.
Really quickly before
right.
you all leave, we're going to send a PDF of some of the stuff.
I'll put it on the PDF.
Please keep chatting with us. We're going to be available if you have specific Q&As, specific questions that are coming up for the next 15 minutes for sure. But of course, you can always write us as well. And I wanted to leave everyone very quickly with 3 self-assessment questions on your time here for yourself. 1, what did I accomplish within this hour? Second one is, what surprised me? And the third one is, what inquiry am I now going to bring into the next moment that's influenced by what I said and what I heard? So accomplishment, surprise, and inquiry.
Are we still here?
Well, there's a lot of people here. 17.
Yeah, just to, on a sort of practical note, I factor in about an hour and 15 minutes, I think, for every session. So I know a lot of people will have to leave on the hour, but we do have that extra Zoom time for Q&A. If people want to stay on and you guys want to keep hosting, that's totally possible and we can do that. Okay,
I'll squeeze in these, what I was about to say, just as feedback. We were talking about finding tribe, breaking down walls, creating space for deep connection, artistic connections, breaking the walls and rules of convention for meaningful and lasting connection, connection to a world out of isolation, and creating networks and webs where artists and further connection can happen. We spoke about personal connection, opening that up into ensemble connection, and then just we're still exploring this idea of what connection is, what audience is, what is self, what's ensemble. So any more questions or comments or observations about that would be very welcome.
I just have to chip in because the thing about what is an audience has sort of been a mind melt for me since university. I had a lecturer ask us this once in a seminar about theatre, and when are you performing and when are you not performing, and what if you know you're performing, what if you don't, and if nobody knows they're watching, are they still an audience? And I've never managed to get my head around it, but I think it's the most interesting question about conscious and unconscious performance and what constitutes an audience. And I could listen to people talk about it forever, but it's funny that you bring it up now because it's one of the only lectures I remember from university. It's stuck with me in a big way.
I'm a huge fan of reverse engineering those things that feel so untangible and varied, because everybody's going to have a different reason and a different answer. But I ask myself, when am I caught up as an audience member? And it might not be in the genre that I'm creating. It's probably better if it's not. But when is it that I'm just like floored or goosebumps or I'm crying or, I forgot somebody's 2 inches away from me. I was just there, and distill those adjectives and adverbs down and then reverse it as a helpful hint. Anybody else have specific questions or just support comments?
I don't have a question, but I'll try and show you my object, which I cannot go without. I can't get up in the morning and forget to take it with me, okay? But I don't know if you can see this. It's a tattoo of a fox.
So if you want to share, you don't have to, but what's your 1 minute why? Why the fox?
No, I'm just going to leave it at that.
Good. Fabulous.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, so early on, I was talking about this very session of ITAC Think Tank being a wonderful one. And I'm not surprised at all because it's been full of motivation and for me, very provoking. And I can't wait to have the PDF, Simon. I can't and Jesse. I can't wait to have the PDF. I know Madeline is going to do that. So thank you so much, guys. I'm still going to be here till you guys sign out.
For me personally, I don't have any questions. I think I've got to dwell on it and kind of ponder a lot of this for a bit. But I think it's, I really got what I was wanting to get out of this, the sort of connection, because it seems like a lot of us are very much on the same page, or at least in the same chapter, metaphorically speaking, and that's really encouraging to know there's a lot more artists out there, literally around the world, thinking about this, the ideas of ensembles and kind of what new art forms do we need to engage with. I know, particularly as an American citizen living in the South, it's really contentious down here sometimes. And so I've found both at a community level, university level, and professionally, art being able to transcend some of that contentiousness. And a lot of that really has to do with these ideas of ensembles. And a lot of this started being generated in my mind when I worked for a children's theater company. I got to perform very outside of my comfort zone because I have no musical theater training, and then they cast me as the lead in a tiny little musical. But working with children and having to perform in front of second graders, which was terrifying in every sense of the word, really helped sort of jumpstart those ideas about what it means to have participatory theater, participatory audiences that are no longer an audience, but an active part of your ensemble. The show was radically different from time to time. And we did it, I think we did the show about 90 times by the end of the contract. So literally nearly 100 chances to do this. And so it's really, really interesting to see people's other ideas about ensemble and what kind of can be brought forth moving forward and engaging in communities where we do have those very contentious political or social or especially in the rural South, very contentious emotional environments.
I think some things that have come up about ensembles that might just to underscore the idea of, I would challenge the idea of a safe space is more of a daring space, daring to be unconditionally loving of whomever and whatever is said. And also I have an option, I call it tapping out rather than checking out. And so if in the vibe of free play, if I'm free like a playground to come in and out of the game as I want, how do I tap out? Because I don't have to explain why. I might be tired. Someone might have said something that upset me, like whatever it is. I tap out and I'm still connected to the game. I'm still connected that I see it's playing, as opposed to check out and leave, or leave mentally and emotionally. And so I might still be playing the game, but I'm not there. And so these kinds of, especially with teaching artists who might only be coming in 3 times, or you're coming in and every ensemble is different, every audience is different. How do I keep those questions open and parameters so that we can talk about a lot of stuff that needs to be talked about, or we can feel it and not be scared that we'll be judged or Instagrammed or failures or saying the wrong word, because we're all trying. My hope is, with suspension of disconnect, is that we're trying to feel each other, because the feelings are deeper than what's different communities are, what words we're allowed to say, what words are now more evolved to say. That's why, to me, disconnect is important, to connect, because I can feel someone's intention. I can teach somebody how to not touch somebody, so safe. But if that person still has the intention to be skeevy and abusive, it doesn't matter where they're touching me. I can feel the difference. And so the shift for me is how do we get not past, but through the politics that it's needed, the structures that are needed. These are things that need to be said. These are things that are held up in laws. These are stats, right? But also, this is why we're doing it. You need to see them. Yeah.
And just to pick up on that, there's a point that is made. One of the conditions of flow, which is very close to play, is a freedom from control, which is that dynamic safe risk space. But it's not just freedom from control, it's freedom from the consequences of control. There's actually control there, but we are free to experiment. And if that connectedness is there, then, and that flow that we are all tuned into are the parameters through which we make those connections, then it makes it an exciting space to be able to play.
Yeah, Simon, I love that. I feel like I entered into a lot of drama spaces with younger students with this safe space idea, and then someone explained to me a brave space context. It was someone who was trans, and in their experience, safe space, safe space, safe space, well, it's not always safe for everybody. The person saying safe, it's safe for them, but for me to be safe, I need to be brave. So to identify it as a brave space, put less pressure on that person to share openly. And it was a day-to-day thing, and it was a group of people back and forth thing. So yeah, I've started using that kind of brave.
Great, that's a really good one, yeah.
Yeah, it seems to work with a range of ages and a range of experiences too. Even I like teaching teachers. My team always talks about that. It's hard to teach teachers because they're the worst students. So having a group of teachers who might not feel brave that day, and it's a safe space and they know that, but they're also allowed to say it's safe, but I'm not brave, and I'm not going to interact in that way.
Yeah, for me, Liz Lerman speaks a lot about this, about the horizontal teaching, right? So I, as vertical, don't have to be the brave one. I don't always have to model being eccentric and crazy. It's exhausting, right? And it's phony. And again, if it's intentionality, and just like animals, we can smell phony. Kids especially can smell it. They'll not only smell it, they'll tell you immediately. There's no nicety to it. So how do I slowly, especially if I've been trained vertically, how do I slowly become horizontal? Because if I went from vertical to horizontal, I'd bust my nose physically, right? So that's dangerous. So how do I slowly start to do that with my ensemble so I can say that? That's a beautiful thing to say.
I think there's also, I'd like to piggyback off of that too, because when I was in social work school, one of the things that I saw a lot of, and a lot of my colleagues were really craving, was this idea of accountability, this idea of like we kind of live in a call-out culture where if a person somebody says something offensive or ignorant or something like that, like they're sort of called out and demeaned for it. But how do we shift a classroom environment? And I've since thought about this also in the context of artists trying to create something. How do we shift a culture of accountability wherein that accountability is very much rooted in love, and being in a loving practice of being like, hey, I noticed that something was said that I think maybe you're unaware of, but how can I communicate in a loving way that I want to help uproot that, or carve a new path with you to empathizing with another person, or feeling another truth with another person in a way that's loving, where we're used to thinking about accountability as like conflict and like tearing a person down, when accountability can be very loving, and seeing that ignorance is an opportunity to grow, and to deepen one's affection and ability to witness another person's vulnerability. So that's something that I'm really much interested in, not only in my role as an artist and an actor and a performer, but also my role as a social worker and a politically engaged citizen and all that jazz. So.
It's a wonderful organization on the West Coast, and they address that, and they're called Calling Up. So as opposed to calling somebody out on something, they're calling them up into the space. So they're actually supporting the fact that they've addressed something that needs to be addressed. It's almost, for me mentally, I've been working for years on shifting. I'm a knee-jerk apologizer. I'm a reformed apologizer, so I say sorry all the time. And I read this great thing that if I can shift that into a thank you, into an appreciation, it doesn't make it about me. So the idea of calling something up as opposed to being like, oh, sorry, and getting on the defensive that I said something poorly. It's, thank you for bringing that to my attention. Thank you. I didn't know. I would like to listen, right? I mean, a simple one is, sorry I'm late, the trains are blah, 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 right? That becomes about me, as opposed to, thank you for your patience, because then it's about them. And that, so little switches, like the daring space and the safe space, and coming out of one's ensemble on why they need those words or those actions is how I believe we start to connect to the ensemble that you need in the moment.
I have to cut in at this point because we are at time, which I don't understand how that's happened, but we have got here now. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Like, you've expanded
you.
the work, the play, so thank you.
Well, thank you all for joining. There is a space now to email me if you want to take out anything about your personal objects or stories that you shared. There will be an email chain shortly, but I will again leave a gap before I do create that in case anyone wants to flag anything before I put us all in touch. So thank you so much to our hosts. This has been great. I knew it would be good, but I've got a notepad full of things to go away and think about. So that's a sign of a good session. Thank you.
Right.
You guys have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.